So Republicans are all over the board on their position on Ukraine and Russia. So who can you count on if you want to stand up to Russia? It's the Democrats, that's who. Let's talk about it in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. I'm also a lawyer and an academic, and I'm here to help you stand up to the BS of the MAGA crowd. So you've got Tulsi Gabbard, who's now a regular commentator on Fox News, leaving the Democratic Party, claiming that she's leaving because we're too supportive of Ukraine. Then you've got the Conservative Political Action Committee sending out a tweet saying that it wants the U.S. to stop backing Ukraine in its resistance to Russia. Then you've got Marjorie Taylor Greene joining dozens of other House Republicans voting against aid for Ukraine. What does all this mean if the Republicans take control of the House in November? Bad news for Ukraine. Just check out this interview with Oliver North. Yes, that Oliver North of the Iran-Contra affair here on Fox News. Let's check it out.
Here with reaction, author of The Giant Awakes, and that's retired Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North is with us. So he warns this is the worst crisis since the Cuban Missile Crisis, warns of nuclear Armageddon, his words, not mine, and his response is to go to the beach and go on vacation and take off instead of headed to the situation.
Okay, let's stop right there, because the place he went after he gave that speech was to his home so he could go to church. Let's stop with the kind of BS that they're pulling here. Let's keep watching.
Why do I have a problem with that, Colonel?
Well, we all ought to have a problem with it. I mean, there's no doubt that this president is significantly compromised, both mentally and perhaps even ethically, because of what.
Now, I love how they just throw out these statements without any kind of evidence. It's obvious that he's significantly compromised. Number one, calling from Oliver North, who violated the U.S. Constitution when he illegally shipped arms to Nicaragua. And frankly, when you see President Biden, he sure looks a hell of a lot better than Donald Trump ever did, either when he was president or now. I'm pretty sure Joe Biden, by the way, is able to hold a cup of water. Let's keep watching.
What his son may have done or didn't do with the communist Chinese. And
this is such BS. It's this accusation that his son may or may not have done with the communist Chinese, just kind of throwing something out, when of course Ivanka and Jared made over $600 million while they were supposedly not taking a salary in the White House, getting all kinds of special treatment by the Chinese while Donald Trump was in office, and after leaving office, getting a $2 billion investment from the Saudis, who he was dealing with directly. But yet, it's Biden who's compromised, right? Let's keep watching.
So physically, mentally, and morally, he's a very compromised commander-in-chief. Now, here's what's happening behind the scenes.
Anybody who defends Donald Trump, as Oliver North and Fox News has no business saying anything about Joe Biden. Enough said there. Let's keep watching.
First of all, it's stunning to me that a strategic target like the Kerch Bridge could be so poorly defended or protected by the Russians. Putin's response, he called it a bridge attack, a terrorism event. Well, this morning, that 80-plus ballistic missiles aimed at civilian targets all across the country. It was time to catch people going to work in the morning. Notably, Putin was either in or had just come from an emergency meeting with his version of the National Security Council. Now, some in the U.S. and NATO intelligence.
Now, that's actually an important point, which is that here's Putin calling the attack on the Kerch Bridge a terrorist attack, where the Kerch Bridge is basically the main connection point between Russia and the Crimea that's being used to basically to transport all of the arms from Russia into southern Ukraine. So it's a good military target, by the way. How does Putin and his military respond? By killing civilians, including children. That is a terrorist attack, not what the Ukrainians did. And that's the kind of behavior, then, that so many of these Republicans are defending. Let's keep watching.
Services felt that Putin might have called his national security advisors into session to get their concurrence for using the Kerch Bridge attack as a provocation for using attack nuke on Kyiv. Now, Biden's response to condemn the Russian attack on Ukrainian civilians in the strongest possible terms. He says he's talked to Zelensky and promised, and I'm quoting now, "We are with you no matter how long it takes and whatever you need." So
Now wait, is he here praising Joe Biden after he attacked him earlier? It seems like they can't get their story straight on Fox News. Let's keep watching.
Here's what Zelensky needs, and he's not getting from the Americans. They need the ability to knock down Russian rockets and missiles, even though the number that's available to Putin right now is considerably reduced because of all that he's been doing against civilians ever since the 24th of February. People are talking about the U.S. providing anti-missile defenses, like the U.S. Patriot anti-missile defense system or the Israeli Iron Dome defenses. Now,
okay, now we have heard, by the way, that President Biden is going to send air defenses to Ukraine, and this is on top of the air defenses that have already been sent there. It's worth noting that the Ukrainians announced, by the way, that on this most recent attack by the Russians against civilians, half of the missiles were shot down by the Ukrainians. This wasn't done because we're not providing with them air defenses. And the second point is, he brings up the Israeli Iron Dome. The Israeli Iron Dome is the Israelis. That's not us. We don't control what the Israelis do. Unlike in Russia, we believe that other countries have their own sovereignty and can make their own decisions. And the Israelis have made it clear that they're not going to share that with Ukraine. And there's nothing we can do about that. Let's keep watching.
you remember, U.S. deployed Patriot batteries with U.S. troops to Saudi Arabia when their cities and refineries were under attack from Iranian-supported rebels in Yemen.
Now, he's quite right about that, and it's really an outrage that here we have Saudi Arabia stabbing us in the back, raising oil prices to help Putin when we were the ones who helped defend them. Let's keep watching.
Not likely going to happen here. Biden is going to stick with his no boots on the ground, no U.S. boots on the ground, and training on Patriot is far more complicated than the man-pad training that has worked so well in the earlier phases of this war. And the Israeli Iron Dome would be near perfect for protecting against Russian missiles, but the Israelis and the Russians are cooperating with each other to rein in Hezbollah and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps being delivering weapons against.
That is the problem, is that so many of these weapons that we're providing to Ukraine are very sophisticated technologically and require a lot of training. So it's not the type of thing we can just send them over and it takes care of everything. It takes time. And as he points out, the Israelis aren't willing to share that with the Ukrainians. So, you know, he seems to be implying that perhaps we should be having boots on the ground. Who here is in favor of sending American troops to actually fight on the ground in Ukraine? Yeah, I didn't think so. Let's keep watching.
It's Israel through Iraq and Syria.
Okay, so he clearly is not doing as well as he thought he would do. I think he thought that this would be a cakewalk. He's been embarrassed on the world stage. He now is targeting civilians, which, by the way, he's been doing from early on. Clearly, he's become isolated and paranoid. People around him seem to be disappearing on a daily basis. If he's willing to target civilians the way he is in such a brutal fashion, is it likely to assume that he'd be capable of using a tactical nuclear weapon as he says he might?
Sean, I don't believe he can. Okay, first of all, we know a lot about their nuclear program.
I find myself in the awkward position of actually agreeing with Sean Hannity here. Let's keep watching.
Because in 1991, we had a lot of our scientists helping the UN redistribute the weapons and get them out of places like Ukraine. Second, he's got a very serious problem of keeping in his own tent the people whose sons are now fighting this war. And we're drawing down on our own war stocks to meet the needs of what the Ukrainians want. The bottom line of it is, I don't think that Putin can be sure of being able to convince somebody downrange to push the button. We know that their PAL codes, their permission of action links, are very much like ours because all the spies that they had working in our nuclear program since World War II. The bottom line of it is, I don't think, and I think he knows, he cannot convince people to push the button, turn the key, or enter the codes. He knows that because
I actually think the bigger issue that Putin may face is something that actually one of you folks had commented on at one point, which is that given how poorly maintained most of the Russian military appears to be and how ineffective they are, that it would not be surprising if it turns out that these missiles don't work very well. Let's keep watching.
He's had so many defectors from his own cause. Over 1 million Russians have fled Russia because of what they're doing.
He keeps pointing to these things, though, that have nothing to do with the actual soldiers who would be carrying out the order to shoot the missiles. So I don't see where this comparing apples to oranges is helpful at all. Let's keep watching.
In Ukraine, Putin's in trouble. Putin may not survive the experience.
That I agree.
Putin was taken out by his best friends.
I said from the beginning, I'm hoping that there's some Russian high-ranking people around him that might know what the right thing to do is and take care of it for the world. I believe he's capable of it. Let's see. I pray I'm wrong. Colonel, safe home. Good.
Again, I find myself in the awkward position of agreeing with Sean Hannity here. I think Putin is capable of ordering a nuclear strike. Is he going to? I think the odds are still long that he will. And as I say, I think the bigger concern is not so much whether he's got people around him who will help him or not help him. I mean, he's made sure that he's got people in position who will do what he tells them to do. The bigger issue, I would believe, is more the technological success of their weapons at this point, because they've been shown to be pretty ineffective right now. And that would really be a disaster if they tried to launch some nuclear-tipped missile and it doesn't work. That would be all the downsides and none of the upsides that they're hoping for, aside from the fact, as has been pointed out by really most rational military analysts, shooting off even a tactical nuclear missile would accomplish nothing for the Russians, that the Americans had actually done wargaming to try to see if there was any benefit from it, and they found that there's not. I'm sure that Putin is aware of that, but again, the question is, he's backed in a corner. Is it possible? I'd have to say it's possible. Well, if you want to see about how the American-supplied HIMARS is Putin's worst nightmare, check out this video over here that I did a little while ago. I'll see you then. In the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.